So these things we discuss. Now if we have multiple catch, then what we need to do? We need to basically mention it using the comma, right? So we will say, for example, this method maybe it will throw IO exception or some other exception. Okay, so we have to just mention, for example, depend on if I have like 2 types of exception, 3 types of exception might be thrown by this method. So I will just mention those exceptions here. Okay. So these things we discuss, and this is the way how we generate an exception. So this is the straight away, without giving any name, we are just creating the exception. In this case, we are actually first creating an object and then throwing it of the exception class, right? So these things we discussed in the last class, and also we have gone through this example. Now after this, we have discussed this problem, right? So we discussed these cases. So I hope you have understand all these things. Now please. Now what we need to understand next is very important point. Now here what we are doing, we are declaring a method that will throw an exception. And here we are actually using the try and catch block, right? So this is the 2 ways or 2 options you have available. So you can go for one of the options depending on your program. Now let me just show you what we have next. So they explain you with one example. So one example they mentioned here, I will discuss this example to you. Okay, so they explain you that you have suppose a circle class and you have some setter method, and of course setter method takes a radius. So radius cannot be a negative. Once the radius is negative, it is like an exception. So you will say illegal argument exception. So this exception will be thrown, right? Because radius cannot be a negative value. When you make a circle, like for example, if it is a dot, means the radius is 0, right? Otherwise, if you make whatever circle, small circle, big circle, so always the radius is somehow positive values, right? So when someone gives the radius as negative value, that will be you consider it as an exception for your program. Okay, so you will throw illegal argument exception. Why I am throwing illegal argument? Why not other? Because I mentioned here. You see here, I mentioned here that this method will throw illegal argument exception. So you mention it, so that's why you are throwing the same exception. Okay. Now, for example, you may mention something else. Okay, but depend on the type that exception you think it generated. For example, here we say that the argument, the parameter which you are passing is illegal. So that's why we basically use this exception object here. Okay, so I will show you with this example in the NetBeans, and then we will discuss how this works. So we will see this. Okay, so don't worry about it. And then we have something called, of course, we have discussed this, throwing the exception, rethrowing it. We have already seen this example. What is the meaning of rethrowing? Rethrowing means you are in the catch block and then you are again throwing it back. You remember the example what we have seen?
Yes.
Method 1, method 2, method 3, ABC. So there was what? In the try and catch block, you were further throwing the exception. Right? So that's what the rethrowing. And you can see using the word rethrowing means you are doing it something again. So this example it's given here. So you see here somewhere they have here for example. You see where, so in the catch block you do something and then you rethrow. So this method will throw back again to somewhere whoever is calling this method. So it will throw back to that. Okay. So for example, it will come here. All right. So because in this example you see the exception is there, right or wrong? Exception is there or not there? So
yes.
Which line will generate the exception? This line, right? Yes. Because you have done x divided by y. Yeah, so this line generates an exception. So it will come here and it will do all this and then it will throw back the exception again to here. Okay, so that's why it will print rethrow exception in the main and then print E. So E is what? E is the object. So it will give you like arithmetic divided by 0, that message you will receive. Anyway, so that's what they explain you here. So I will show you with the code. Now you have something called finally. So I will discuss this with the code. So remember, sometimes we use the finally. Now in new Java 7 onwards, you don't need the finally also. But from the previous versions of Java, you need a finally. Why we need a finally? I will discuss this when I explain you with the code. So finally is used mainly to release the resources. So if you are working with Java 7 onwards, they don't have finally. They have something like try with resource close. But anyway, it's not here in this course. So no problem. We will just stick with the old style of using the try and catch. Okay. So in new Java, Java 7 onwards, you don't need like try like this. You can say try with resource, something like that, okay? But it's not mentioned here, so I'm not giving you that. So anyway, so you have something called finally also. This is like a optional part, like a default, you know. In switch cases, what you have? You remember the switch? SWITCH,
Yes.
switch.
Case.
Then case 1, case 2, case 3, and the last is the default, right? Now, similar like concept is here. Now, in the try blocks, you have something called finally. Now, remember, finally always execute, whether you have exception or you don't have exception. Now, catch always execute? No, right? Catch only execute when you have an exception, right? If you don't have an exception, catch basically does not execute, right? But finally, always execute. I will show you with the code, then it will be clear. But I'm just showing you the slide because one of your friends said I don't, show the slide, so I'm now stick with the slide so that there should not be any problem. So anyway,
He's not here.
And he's not here. Yeah. That's what I said, my dear. You are not there, and you are saying I'm not. So anyway, so finally block is there, and mainly we use this to release the resources. What is the meaning of that? I will show with the code. Release the resource means, for example, suppose you are writing again, because here it's very difficult for you to understand. Suppose I am writing here a code which suppose I am opening a file. I am opening a scanner object. Now, if the exception occur, maybe you will write the closing of the scanner somewhere last, right or not? When you write the statement, try statement, the closing of the scanner object will be always last, right? Once you finish everything, then you close it. Now, if the exception occur, that close will not execute, right? Because exception might occur in somewhere in the middle of the line. You understand the point? So the object will still be open. So that's why what they say that close all those all those resources that you are using in your program in the finally block. Why? Because we know finally always execute, whether you have exception or you don't have exception. Okay, so I know you are not able to understand, so I will show you with an example in the next in a moment. Okay, so what is important here? Now what I am going to give you, you will find at least 2-3 questions in the final exam from these concepts, what we are just now going through it. So for example, if you see here, once the try blocks finish executing, then it will come here. Whatever you have here, it will execute. Clear? Alright, so for example, what they say that if suppose this line has an exception, so what will happen? This line will not execute, this line will not execute, okay? Because this line, statement 2 has an exception. Statement 1 works fine, there is no problem, okay? But statement 2 got some exception. Now what is that exception? No problem, any one of it. Maybe array index out of bound, maybe arithmetic exception or whatever. So it's just like a general structure of the try with finally, okay? So suppose this line generates an exception. So what will happen? So from here, your program jumps to the catch clause, right? So it will check the exception 1. Suppose this is of the same type exception, so it will come here and it will do whatever you have written here. And after that, it will go to the finally, okay? And then it will go here, okay? This is the case when you have an exception. All right. So this is they explain you with the, this is like rethrowing it. Anyway, so this is like a rethrowing of the exception. So when you say rethrow exception, then it will come back here, right? I think that's it. Custom exception is also there. Okay, good. So I will explain you what is custom exception. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, so they explain a custom exception also. Anyway, so this is the last topic. So I will be back with custom exception. But before that, let me explain you some examples with the NetBeans so it will be more clear to us. So let's say this is try. Yeah, finally something like this. Example. Okay, so this is a very important example for you to understand. So let's say try finally something like this. Okay. Now, program is very easy. Hopefully, there is nothing here in the program, but we need to see whether we understand the concept or not. Okay, so let's suppose we have something here like this. So let me increase some font here. So Suppose this is my array. Okay. Okay. And then we have something. And then we have okay. And suppose so I'm just trying to show you something here. Okay, we have a scanner also. Okay, this is your code.
Exist. Yes. Yes.
Okay. SYST. Okay, very good. Now what we are doing, we are saying int whatever x1 is equal to int dot next int. So these lines of code is there, and assume I entered, when I run the program, I entered 3.4. Okay. Now, so what I'm doing here, so I'm saying something like this. I'm saying try all this. Okay, and then I'm saying catch. Now, what type of errors you think I have here?
Array out of bound.
Yes, sir.
Array out of bound.
Okay, 1 second, just 1 second. Now we are here. Okay, good. So let me just copy this because I will make it something like this. Right? Okay, so I have something here when this exception will occur. What will happen? So it is something like this, right? Very good. Now, so what should I fill with this catch?
Array out of bound.
Yes. So you see here, this line, no problem, right? Mainly this will execute without any problem. This line, do you have? Okay, first tell me. Let me just phrase like this. Which line generates an exception, and what is the cause of exception? Simple question.
10.
Which
Line.
line? Listen my question again. Which line has an exception?
10.
The first exception. And what is the type of the exception? I'm saying the first exception because we have more than one exception. So the first exception is which line?
10.
Yes, sir.
10.
10. Sure. Or 9. 10 or 9?
No, 10.
10. So this line.
Yes.
Why we have exception here?
No one thinks so.
Yes, out of boundary. So your answer is correct because the size is 4 here and we try to put a 4 here, so that will be an exception. So what is the type of exception here? What is the name of the exception?
Array out of bound.
Very good. Array. So just you have to say A and control space, and it gives you array index out of bound exception and something E, and then you give a message here. So for example, the message is array index issues, right? So something with array index issues. Very good. So what is the next type? What about next? So that means suppose we already we already understand that we have an exception here. Now what about the next? Do we have any other exception after line 10?
11.
Line 11 has an exception?
Yes.
Yes, sir. How
Yes.
many of you are saying line 11 has an exception? Line 11. All of you, right? Yes. Line 11. When I run, whether it will work or not? This is the sawal. Line 11. It will work or not? Why? Why?
Because we have exception like
What type of exception you have?
array
Array out of bound? No, I'm saying line 11. 10 we already fixed it. So suppose 10 we fix it. So let's say 10 is, we fix the 10. Sorry, we fix the 10. Okay, so we fix the 10. Now it is fine. Now tell me which line? 11, right? Why? Arithmetic exception, right? Very good. So again, you say A control space, and you get an arithmetic exception, and you say E. Okay, and then system out, and you will say divide by 0, DEVI, divide by 0, something like this. Of course you have to, I think I have to add this. There is extra. Okay, so this is clear up to here.
Yes.
So that means we have a problem here also. So I cannot divide any number by 0. I have to make it something other than 0, right? So now we don't have any exception. What about this? What I have written comment? I suppose when I run the program,
Sure.
I entered 3.4. So 3.4, whether it will accept, this line
No.
will accept
No.
3.4?
No, because this is the double and the type is int.
Very good. So the type here in this method, it will only accept integer, and we entered 3.4, for example, right? So
Yes.
what will happen? Your program will crash here. So what type of error you have here? Input mismatch. Excellent. So we will say I control space, and you can select it from here, input. If it is not there, just write the next letter, input, INP, IN, input. Yeah, so now it comes. Okay, so input mismatch exception key. And then you can give a message here, system out, input error. Right? So I hope up to here no problem. Anyone has any problem? Okay, so what we learned, sometimes this type of question comes in the exam. They give you the code like this, and they give you already exactly like this, and they will say, okay, what will be the output of the program? So you have to decide. So for example, if this is the code and this is the comment written here, okay, let me just complete it with finally. So because we have to see the finally also. So finally block always execute. So we will say finally. FINALLY, right? So finally block always execute. Now, very interesting. Let's try to put this. We will say outside. Try. Now I am going to again ask the question, and you have to answer one by one, step by step. Now suppose if I run the program, what answer? What will be the output? Because this type of question generally they give in the exam. I'm just telling you based on my previous experience. So basically they give you a code like this, and they will say, okay, trace the code. So if you are familiar with all the types of basic exceptions that you should know, like for example in this code, so you can easily answer it. So for example, if I run the program now, tell me what will be the output as per the exception currently you see in the code. What will be the answer? Keeping in the mind what I said finally will always execute whether you have exception or you don't have exception. So you have to tell me complete answer, not just that array index error or whatever. So I'm just coming in a minute. So if you want to share your thoughts, no problem, you can share it. I'm just going and coming back in 1 minute. So just discuss between your friend that if this is the answer, why this is the answer, but without making noise. I'm just coming in 1 minute. So, yes, sir. So what do you think? What do you think? What answer when I run the program?
Array index issue
Okay, then
Finally.
and
outside the try block. Excellent. So when your program will run, of course these lines will not have any issue, but here you have an issue, right? So exception will occur here. So when the exception occur here, these lines will not be executed, right? These lines of code in the try block, whatever you have, 1, 2, 200, 2000, whatever. So it will go from here to the first catch, and it will check whether the reason is the same. Yes, the reason is the same. Why? Because this is array index of the code. So it will come here and it will print this. After that, it will not go here, right? So only one catch will be executed. So after this, you will go to the finally, print this, and then once he comes out of the try block, he find this, so he will print this. Right? So let's try to run and see. Of course, it will ask me to enter anything, so I'm just putting a comment. I don't want to enter. But anyway, it will not come here, right? So run this. So you can see here array index issues, then finally, and then outside the try block. Right? Now let's try to do the second thing. Now tell me what will be the answer.
Divide by 0 finally.
Outside.
Yeah, so divide by 0 finally and outside that triangle, right? So one question sure will come based on similar concept.
هدية.
Hadiya for those who remember. All the exams we give hadiyas, but you don't take it, what we can do? Right? In the second exam, there was only one question that according to me, was a little average wise, yeah, complexity was there. But other question was hadiya, but you did not take it. Anyway, inshallah hadiya for every one of you. So let's run this and see what result we get. Divide by 0 finally and outside the block, right? So let's fix this also. And let's try to enter 3.4. So what I will get here when I enter 3.4? Input error finally and outside the try block, right? Okay, so that's good. Now suppose if everything works fine. So suppose in the second case I entered 3. What will happen then? Finally and outside the block, right? So this so let's test this. So now your program is waiting. Why it is waiting? Because it's here, right? So it's here. Because I don't give any message, so I have to give a message to the user. But anyway, so I enter 3.2 or 4, whatever. Then input exception, because exception occur. Because of that, it goes here, and then it gives this message, and then finally, and then outside that try block. Let's run again. This time I give the value or the one which is valid one. Then finally and outside the try block. Why? Because no exception occurred. Right? So there is no exception occurred, that means no catch executes. So catch will only execute when you have exception. When you don't have exception, the catch will not work, right? But finally will work. Is this clear? So at least you should know like these basic things, that array index, out of bound exception, we have like arithmetic exception, we have something like input mismatch exception. So this is like a basic things, a basic exception you should know. Anyway. Now, let me just again give you an example to show what is the purpose of finally. Of course, the purpose is not to give you this message, right? We don't basically use this finally to give this message. So why we use the finally? So let me just show you with this example. So suppose finally example. So finally use example. Something like this I'm giving you. Okay, so where we use the finally, mainly we use the finally once we use certain resources, external resources. Suppose I'm reading from a database, I'm reading from a file, I'm reading from a server. So I use those resources. So I have to release the resources in case if there is an exception or if there is no exception, both the cases. Once you've done, you have to release the resource, right? So let's try to see this example to understand. So we say file is equal to new file, right? So we want to do a file program. So we are saying something like abc dot whatever. Okay, this is our file. And then we use the scanner or we use print writer, whatever. Print writer is better. So print writer, write or yeah, write. Okay. Whatever you got out. Equal to new print writer. Okay, and here we say file. Okay. Of course, I have to import it, and I have to import and throw. So we'll say try by, okay, so something like this. Yeah. Okay, so this one we will say system out, file not found, something like file not found, or yeah, file not found. Anyway, so what we are doing here, we want to write some data to the file, so we are writing the data. We are saying it's out.print, println, and we are writing some information here, right? Suppose like this. Idea you are coming so late?
Discussion assignment.
Anyway, you have to tell your doctor that you have a lecture. So normally what you do when you write your file application, you have to, when you, suppose you finish writing it, let's say this is just an example. So this is just, for example, learn finally, something like that. Okay, so this is what you are doing. And then after that, what you are doing, you are saying out dot, what, flush, right? This is the last method. And then you say out dot close. Okay, this is what you do. This is the way how you write your program, right? Now, my point here is, suppose your exception occur here somewhere. Suppose, I'm just giving an example. Now, if the exception occurred here, now these lines of code, of course, from here till end will not execute, right? So your or let's say exception occur when you are writing it, for example, in this line. So when you are writing it at that time, something happened. So exception occur here. So when the exception occur here, so these lines of code, line number 12, 13, 14 will not be executed, right? So this object which you have created here, it will be still open. Okay. Now, maybe for this small problem, you think it's not like a big issue. But imagine if you are writing large programs and you have so many objects, you are opening it, so many files you are saving it. You understand the point? So many files you open it and you try to update. So for those kind of application, if you write your program like this, of course, you will use the resources, even though your program crash. The resources are still open. So what you do here, you use the finally block, and then what you do, of course, if I say, for example, out.close, I will get an error, right? Because this block does not see this. So to see the out block, what you need to do, you need to do something like this. You have to declare this outside the try, and here simply you have to say out is equal to this, and then it will see, and just say here null, okay, because it is asking you to initialize. Okay, so you initialize this, and then you actually create the object, and then so you don't need the close here now, okay, because you know that whether I have an error, exception, or I don't have exception, finally will always execute, right? So it will be automatically closed whether I am able to successfully execute this program or something happened while the program is running, okay? So our resources that we use, it basically releases, right? So this is one of the purpose of finally block, just to release the resources in case if there is any exception occur or if the program works fine. In both the cases, we know that finally block will always execute. So that's why, yes sir. You have also discussion?
Discussion?
No, I'm at the
No,
last.
not.
Okay. Why you are coming late, my dear? This is why.
I just arrived.
MashaAllah. Come.
Sorry.
So basically, I hope you remember and you understand this concept, right? So now, so this is they explain you in these slides the finally blocks and all those concepts. Now there is some another thing they have explained you here is basically which is known as custom exception. Custom exception, very good. So the next topic is the custom exception. What is custom exception? Okay, so I will give you an example here. Custom. Custom. Okay, now what is the meaning of custom exception? Now, so we know that in Java there are so many exception classes are there, right? But what if we want to create our own exception class? We want to create our own exception class. So what? Is it possible or not possible? Right? So that's the meaning of custom exception. Because if you remember in the previous lecture, I already discussed this, that sometimes you consider certain rules as an exception for you. Certain kind of behavior in your program is not an exception for Java, but for you, you consider it as an exception. You understand the point? For those situations, you can create your own exception class. Okay? And that's what the meaning is custom exception. Okay? So how we can create our custom exception? That's very important. Can anyone just guess how I can create an exception class? Yes.
Get class and extend runtime exception.
You are somehow very nearer. You are somehow very nearer. So basically, if you see this slide, so who is the father of all this? Generally the exception. It's the exception. So what we will do, we will create a child of exception. Okay? So in custom exception, what we will do, we create a subclass of an exceptions. Once we are able to do that, that means we have our own exception class. Just like how the Java have created these classes. Now, instead of using their own exception classes, in my case, for example, certain rule which I want to create as an exception, so I will create my own exception class. Okay? So let's try to see what example they have given to you. So you can see here, they have given you an example here. Let's see what example they have given you. Yeah, invalid radius exception. Now you see here, in Java, you don't have any class with this name. Invalid radius exception. There is no exception class with this name. You understand the point? So this exception class, you will create it because you consider, for example, any value as negative for the radius as an exception. But which type of exception? Not illegal argument, but this type, invalid radius exception. So how I will do that? Very simple. Let's see this. So what you will do, you will say invalid radius exception, extend exception. So whenever you want to create your own exception class, simply you have to make a super class by extending it to the exception. So your child class will be a child class of exception class. How you will do this? You will just put this. You will say public class, your class, extend exception. And then you have to do something with the constructor here, okay? Now this is your class. You can have a radius, you can have setter, getter, anything you want, you can have it. But you have to, invoke, in the constructor, you have to invoke the super with your message. Because normally the exception class has its own message. But you don't want to use the exception class message. You want to use your own message. So that's why you have to use a constructor here with something, and you will say super invalid radius, something like this. You understand the point? So let's try to do something like this. So I will not take the same example because this example is already available to you. So you can run this one. Let's take another example, okay? So let's create our custom exception class. So what I will do, I will say class. And so what do you think? So let's take an example of the item, okay, item class, and we know that item price cannot be negative. So the price of any item must be always 0 or more than 0, right? It cannot be 0 or more than 0, price of anything. You will not find a pen with -5 real, right? You will take the pen and he will give you -5, and 5 real also he will give you. You will not find like this. This is the meaning of -5, right? So you will not find the situation or anywhere, people, maybe they will give you free, but they will not say take this and take 5 real also, you will not find this thing. Anyway, so what we will do, we will say, for example, invalid, something like invalid price exception. Now this exception class is no more available in Java. So this is our exception class. We are creating it because we want to implement certain rule based on our own condition. Okay? So what we will do, how we will create this as an exception class? Simply I will say exception, right? And that's it. But when the exception occurs, we want to give our own message. We want to pass our own message, right? So for that, of course, this is related to the price. So what I will do, I will make a price here somewhere. I will say public double price, okay? And what I will do, very simple, I will use here, of course, the constructor. I need to build a constructor here, right? So I will say here public.
Same name.
Yeah, same name, invalid. Invalid exception. Now I can do anything here. I can just pass, for example, a radius, or I can do so many things. For example, I'm saying what I'm saying here. Let's say this takes a price. Okay, this takes a price, and what I will do, I will use super. Why I'm using super? Because I want to change the message which I get it here, right? So I want to change that message. So I will do what? I will say super, and I can give any message here. I can say, for example, invalid price entered, right? Or yeah, given or something, whatever you call it. So something like this, I am giving it. Okay, and yeah, that's it. So this is what I'm doing. And what else we have? After that, I will say price, whatever price is given, equal to, of course, this dot price equal to price, right? So this is what I have here. Okay. Now I should have a getter also, because I want to read the price, what price user has entered, right? So I will have a getter also. So I will say public void, sorry, just double, because it returns, right? So double get price, something like this, and it returns this price. Okay, so this this exception class is our class, right? This is our exception class. Okay, very good. Now what we do, what we need. So we need, for example, we need a class called item, right? And then we have normal item class, how you have, of course, you will say double price, and then you have, sorry. And nobody is warning me that you have done a mistake. All of you are just watching the video. String STRING, right? Okay, this is what we have. And then we suppose we have the setters and getters and all those things are here. So I will just generate setters and getters. Okay, just for, and I have a toString also. You know this one. But what I will do, when I am setting the price, I want to use this exception class which I have created, right? So what I will do, at the time of setting the price, I will check, because the exception will occur here. I don't want to take any negative value. I don't want user to enter a negative value. So what I will do, I will first announce that this method maybe it will throw an exception. What type of exception? Invalid price exception, right? So what I will do, I will say throws what? Invalid price exception, right? And then very simple, I will say if the price, if this dot price, yeah, if it is greater than 0 or equal to 0, greater than or equal to 0, no problem, you do this. Otherwise simply throw throw new and invalid price exception. Okay, now here he is asking me for the price, and that price I am giving it here, right? So this will basically go here, right? So that's it. So what I have done here, I checked if the price is greater than 0, no problem. Our rule is the data user has entered as per our rule. Otherwise, I will just throw an exception. Which exception? The exception which I created it, and it will automatically take the constructor, the price which you give it, right? So the price which is given, that will be basically sent back here, and the message will be returned as well as the price will be stored. Where? In the E. Now this is E, the object when, okay, let me 1 second. So what will happen here? Okay, so everything is fine. So let's try to do something here. So what we'll do is a try what? 1 second. Then we have a catch. Okay, so this is how we write. So what we need to do here? Of course, we have to create an object, right? So we have to create an object first. So we'll say item equal to new item, right? So we created an object. So this is suppose item 1. We created an item 1. Okay, and suppose we created another item 2. Okay, so this is item 2. Now what we do, once we create the item 1, now we have to set the value, right? Set the price, set the name. So I'm saying item 1 dot set name. So I am setting the name. So I'm saying this is a pen. Okay, and then I am setting the price for the pen. So I'm saying pen price. Now what is the price of the pen? Now here I might do the mistake. So let's suppose this is fine. Let's suppose this is fine. So 12 real. Okay, and after that I'm printing the value. I'm saying this just give me the to string, and this has to be printed. So system out, right? So this is what we are doing. Now the second object what I'm creating here, the second object. Now here I will make a mistake. So I'm saying item2 dot set. Now I'm setting the name of this item. Suppose this is pencil or anything. Okay, and then I'm saying item2 dot set price, and here I'm setting a price of -10 or -12. Okay, and I'm just saying the same thing. System out println item2 dot to string. Okay, so I know that this will throw an exception. What type of exception will be thrown? That the one we generated. So that's what we will say. I will say this dot e. Now this e is the object. Now it will contain what? It will contain
The name and the price.
no, it will not
Price.
contain name. It will contain the price. And of course, what you are doing in the constructor, you are overriding this message of the super of the exception, and you are setting the price, right? So now what you need to do here, once the exception will be thrown here and you caught it, now what you will do here, you will do so many things here. So first of all, you will get the message, e.get message, right? So get message. So get message will be the message what you will return, and then also suppose you want to show the price, that what price user has entered. So you will say user entered the following price. Okay. So how you will get the price? Same way, simple. You will say e dot what? Get price, and that's it. Because inside this e object, inside this object, you are storing the price, and this get message is this message what you will get, invalid price entered. What is the price that this method will give you? You understand the point? So here in the second one, he will show you user entered the following price. Okay, of course by giving a message, this message will be shown first, invalid price entered, and then it will show you user has entered the following price, and it will give you the price whatever he has entered. In our case, he will show you -12, right? So this will work fine. Item 1 will work fine because we don't have an exception, but item 2 will generate an exception, and this message will be thrown, right? So this line will generate the exception. That means this line and this line will not execute. So you will not find any to string of item 2. So item 2, no to string. But for this, it will execute because this line has no problem, right or wrong? So let's run and test if it works for us. It's giving you. One second, what it does. Item price. Item set price. What is the set price here? Set price. So. Set price 12 minus 12. Okay. Maybe, but it does not matter. Does not matter. Set price, if the price is greater than equal to 0, otherwise throw new invalid exception. Okay. Invalid exception. So it throws the exception. Catch invalid exception E, and it should give you. Let's run this again. What is the reason why it's not giving factor is used?
I think it would give him more if this done 0.
So that part is covered by the else, right? That part is covered by the else because of the constructor. is what? What is minus 12 here?
الضمني
Minus 12 is
لكن
throws invalid exception to invalid and it sets the price it should give you here. Let me just double check here I'm doing everything right. I'm doing everything right.
بيصير مرتين بيصير مرتين هاي تخلي
I'm doing everything right.
تقدر تسوي كود لا تقدر تسوي كود تسوي كود العكس وكان بشغل
Yes, anyone has any guess why I am not getting that? Okay, let me just do one more. Item 2, item, set price, this. So exception is occurring here. So this is throwing back your exception to here. Just 1 second, I'm just trying to do something. Not coming here. It should print you the test, right? So why is not coming here?
Maybe it's not reading the constructor,
Huh?
the method, the whole method.
Right price. Right price. It's not, but 1 second. But it does not matter that. Sometimes it works or not. Okay. Minus is not reading.
maybe mistake.
Do we write greater than equal to like that? How we write greater than equal to? You know, after taking 4 lecture, my mind is also sometimes. Anyway, so greater than equal to, which should work. Anyway, so that was the coding is fine, but when we say if it is greater than equal to do this, otherwise do this. Okay, so this is some weird thing happens sometimes. Anyway, so I hope now it is okay. Sometimes you must so you can see here, but now
All wrong.
all wrong.
It's not reading the
Huh?
first one.
For the 12 also not reading?
Yeah.
This term price is 12.0.
أنا أظن واحدة هذا أسهل أكبر من مصر بس ما ينفع أما نقول له إذا جاء غير هذا الرقم هذا خطأ
Oh, you guys are not telling me. You see what I have done here? I said this dot price, right? I want to check this, I mean this price, not this dot price. You understand the point? So the mistake is That's why the time is also so silly mistake what I have done. You see here what I'm doing? I'm saying this dot price. This dot price is 0, of course, because it's not yet set. And you are not telling me, mashallah, so many of you. I have to check this, right? Not this dot price. This dot price means the data member. But I have to check the parameter price, because this is what the user is giving. Anyway, mistake is mistake. Okay, so if it is greater than or equal to 0, greater than or equal to 0.0, then do this, otherwise do this. Now there is no problem. Okay, so this was the mistake. So sometimes this happens because of time or whatever you call it. So now it is working, see? So this is what the coding is, if you do some silly mistake and you are looking something else, you are shocked, why did this happen? So this happens. So you learn these things. So earlier what we said, see, when we say this dot price, it's completely different meaning, because now I'm saying compare the price here, and here the default value is 0, right? Because I am setting it in the setting, set price, I'm writing this logic, which is so I don't need to say this dot price. This means the current object. The current object here is 0, of course. The default value is 0, because I'm setting it. So I have to check the parameter value, not the default value, not the data member value. Okay? So this was the mistake I did. Maybe I was fast or whatever. So you have to say the price, which is the parameter, not the object price. Okay? So now everything is fine and your program works fine. So there is no problem. So for this case, it works fine, but the second case, it gives you the error and you see invalid price entered, user entered the following price minus 12. Clear? So basically, the important point here is that we use the Java's defined exception in most of the cases, but in certain cases, we also need to define our own custom exception, because as per my rule, as per my data, as per so many different reasons, I need to define my own exception class, and that's what the custom exception class means. And the custom exception class, how you can create, simple, just extend it with the exception. Okay, so this becomes your exception class. And now the second thing what you need to do is, in the constructor, you need to call the super and give your own message. Because if I don't give this, let's try to just put a comment here and run this now. See, null.
Null.
What he returned? Null. Because there in the exception class, it does not give you anything, right? So that's why we want to change the null to our message. So that's why this step is very important. Okay, so I hope you understand these concepts. So this completes your chapter exception and exception handling. I hope you understand the importance of handling the exceptions, especially when you are writing the applications. Okay, so exception handling is very important when you are writing your application, because it helps you to overcome the issues that you will find. You means your code will get once it is basically you use some resources, for example, or certain data what the user is entering. Based on that, your program complains. So those issues you can handle it with the help of exception handling concept. Okay, so if you are not having exception handling in your code, even as I have given you this thing previously mentioned it, that even whatever efficient or beautiful code you have, it will be not robust. It will not consider as a robust application. Okay, so this completes basically this chapter. So please read some of the slides. They have just explained you the things what I have mentioned to you. So for exam purpose, maybe you can just look to the details what they have given you. But most of the things what we discussed already, it is there. Okay. Now my question: what topic you find in the lab, your lab instructor is giving you? Because the GUI, as per our agreement, means the coordinator and all those, the GUI must be covered in the lab. But I don't know in the lab it is covered or not. The GUI, the graphical user interface, is this topic covered in the lab or not yet?
Not this.
This week lab is over or still you have time?
Sunday, Monday.
It's already over. Okay, so anyway, so what I will do in the next class, the whole next class, I will give you the GUI. Okay, so don't miss, because that's very important. In the project 5, you have to do something in the GUI. So if you miss next class, then you will have a problem. So the next class, I will show you the major concept of the GUI. Okay, and then Wednesday we will see if there is a requirement for the class or not. That depends. So come next class, I will give you the GUI so that you can complete your program 5, right? Because that is some GUI things you have to do there. So in the next class, I will discuss about the GUI.
ما في program هدية.
Hadia?
Yeah.
Yes, Hadia is there. These are Hadia, what I am just giving you.